Shorty's is, I think, 1101 East 11th Street. The original building there was built sometime around 1875 to 1880 by an Italian person named Salvatore Bialetti. It was listed as a grocery, saloon and armory or something at that time. So it was, you could get drunk and buy a gun and get some groceries on the way home, all at the one building. And then turn of the century, a German guy named Benno Haenel, Haehnel, bought the property, and it really is known by the old-time residents in this neighborhood as the Haenel grocery store, because that's what it was for almost all of the 20th century. For a short time, I believe in the 60s, relatives of a family that are still here in the neighborhood, the Salas family, had it as their grocery. So for a short time after it was the Haenel grocery store, it became the Salas grocery store. And then eventually this guy named Bonner, Shorty Bonner, I forget what his first name, I mentioned it somewhere here, got a hold of it, and just like everything on 11th Street, converted it. There were lots of little grocery stores and fish markets and pharmacies and other things along 11th Street, but gradually either they got closed down, burned down, torn down, or converted into a nightclub, because basically 11th Street during the 60s and 70s became a night spot. It closed down probably in the spring of 1987. And I remember there was one event, I used to walk to campus and back and walk past Shorty's on the way. There was Bruce Hornsby and the Range. I don't know if you know who they are, but anyway, it was they were filming a video, an MTV video in there. It's the last thing I saw happen in that building last legal activity in that building for a long time, probably 10 years or more than 10 years. So I was, interested. The building was boarded up, and not long afterwards, began to be used by everybody from just your basic transient to folks who would drink and then cook their Vienna sausages out in a steel drum behind Shorty's underneath the porch and charred the thing. I thought they were going to burn it down on many occasions. And drug dealers, drug addicts, prostitutes. So it got a lot of use in those years, but as I said, nothing legal. 10 years went by with the city owning Shorty's and nothing happening. Finally, they'd formed an organization. Eric Mitchell, the city council member, formed an organization called the Austin Revitalization Authority. That board was going to oversee the redevelopment of East 11th Street. Shorty's was owned by the city. As I mentioned, it got foreclosed on. They had a $30,000 loan to fix the roof to Shorty. He defaulted on it, and the city foreclosed in like 1990 or 91. And so the city acquired it. Yeah, it's the first project to come to completion by the ARA. As you can see, if you go by Shorty's now, it's restored. There's a small addition off the back of it, and it's being used as an office by Balcones Recycling Company. So a long struggle to try to get something done, and eventually, you can see what I think is a very beautiful building there now. What's amazing, if you look at Shorty's, that building, the Haenel grocery store, and you look across the street, as I mentioned, to what's now Shoehorn Design, which was at one point in time the Arnold Bakery, and it was Reuter's Bakery, and so on, and it's eventually part of the Southern Dinette. So it has there's a history in the community, and then there's an amazing sort of, for Austin, antiquity to those buildings. They date to the 1800s, or turn of the century, which is, for Austin, that's relatively old. And then you go across the street, as I mentioned, from Shorty's, you go across Waller, and there's the house that Salvatore Bialetti lived in. So right there with those three structures, you've got just a little piece, but a really important piece of East 11th Street's history. The history and the sense of place that it has is really stated well by those three buildings. So they could use those, if they can get those three done, they could use that as kind of a keynote for the rest of the development. I hope they do anyway.